Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News. Today we have Bryan King joining us. As you know, he recently won the Arkansas State Senate District 28 runoff race against Senator Bob Ballinger. Hi, Bryan. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Well, listen, we have not spoken to you since the runoff race. You won that by 53% of the votes. Tell us about that. Are you surprised by that win?
Yeah, it was not, it was an amazing race. I mean, it was like waking up every day and just building. And there are so many people to thank in this thing. I mean, it is not a political pandering thing to say. It was everybody else that got this victory. And it was people that were believers. And I say one thing in politics is, it's one thing to have voters, and certainly want the most votes, but you have to have believers. And in the last two races, we figured out there was 50 plus postcards sent out to beat me. There's well over, with the secret money stuff, was well over $600,000 spent to try to beat me. And you know what? You just don't weather that from these corporate big special interests that only want their issue. And the people, the political jackals and hyenas and the profiteers, as I call them, the people like Red Hatcher and Chase Duggar and them, it's just, they will do anything or say anything for money, whether it's the truth or not. And, we never put out anything that we couldn't substantively back up, where they do, they don't care. And so it was really a victory against that whole corrupt machine down there that wants to have people they can control and manipulate and control the process for their own profit and benefit.
Yeah, that was one thing that you consistently said, that you were there to fight the corruption, to drain the swamp. You consistently said that you're not putting out anything that you could not back up
Absolutely.
with facts. And help us understand that, because a lot of people who were on the opposite side of the aisle, who were for your opponent, said that that was not the case, that you were spreading lies, things that were not true, and that even further than that, that the Democrats were crossing over, voting for you, and that they wanted you in office. Help us break that down.
Yeah, I said as my campaign, and it was something Clint Reed wanted me to keep with, was that I tell people, I just promise you a fair word or a fair fight. And I think that's essential in a democracy, to keep it going and work, because as we know, people take positions and say things in election and go do something else. So it didn't matter what persuasion you were or whatever political. And understand this thing about me not being conservative. We go back to the budget, as we talked about. These Republicans have got down there and increased the state budget by 50%, and they've grown other parts of different areas and doubled it. I mean, I go back to saying, when I first went in with Governor Huckabee going out down there, was that they, the state budget was the low point, 4.1 or $2 billion. These guys have grown it so much, and federal money far more, to $6 billion. So it was about calling them out, and I never quit doing that in my message or my voting, and whatever tactics I used was about doing that. So I think it became about that we have got to get in this thing and start talking about issues, and no matter how tough they are, without butchering one another. I mean, these are the same people that had somebody that voted to grow government and wasteful government, not stop corruption and fraud and abuse. Well, everybody that I have talked to from every political persuasion doesn't like that. And so that's what they come in, and it became about, exploiting the system for their own benefit, which is still going on. It has to do with wasteful spending. People all across the political spectrum do not need it wasted, because we have things like special needs kids, those type things. And so when you have politicians that vote for the special interests that hurt those type things, it brought across a wide variety. I keep there and saying, I never changed my position on anything. I mean, it changed my direction and what I said I was going to do. And so I'm like, if you want to support me, fine. But this was still based. I mean, I had still had Jim Holt, Mike Huckabee, the Kellers, and all them for me. And so it became about a whole coalition, but yet the main core of the consistency of what I try and do and say is just be fair with people and be straight with people. And that's just not happening in politics from all persuasions.
Was there anything that happened during the course of this campaign? Of course, this was not new to you. You've been here before, especially against the same opponent. Was there anything that happened during the course of this campaign that caught you by surprise or you wish would have gone differently?
Oh my gosh, you can't say I wish it would have gone differently after it came out like it did. But it became a systematic thing of things that fell. One was I talked about the only reason I lost last race was 99% of the reason was because of the way it was districted. The coward Mike Beebe, as I always called him, when he did something cowardly, he didn't like me because I challenged him on issues. So he drew Green Force, my hometown, out of Carroll County. Had Carroll County been whole and treated fairly last time, well, I won easily. And, it became about that. It became about, I'll say, my wife. I was actually, as I've got healthier and changed things, I had a hip replacement and I got out of politics and I got back focused on life. I was like, should I run or should I not? And I was actually leaning towards not running. And my wife we were laying there in bed one night and she read about everything and what was going on. And she said, you need to run. And she stuck with me through it all. So it was hard. I mean, to sit there and say, look at the two races. I mean, if you add up, like I said, think about it. One guy, they're spending these corporate controllers and want to, manipulate things for their own benefit, the corruption people, everything like that. I mean, they spent in two races well over 600,000. I mean, we figured up in Carroll and Madison County, where I win both counties collectively by landslides, those people got 50 plus postcards dumped on them, text message, everything else. And I laughed one night, I come home for being late campaigning and my wife's there. And it's like all these postcards are laid out of, saying I'm the mouthpiece of the devil to whatever, I want to pull the feeding tubes out of starving babies. And all this is happening. And I'm like getting late. And, I said, Shannon, are you going to leave me? And she goes, well, no, I'm not going to leave you. And I'm like, well, why not? I mean, if I was me, I would have left a long time ago. So she stuck with me and it was really special. And I can't say enough.
Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. Something that you are also familiar with. There's a court date set in the complaint with Crawford County. Jody Harris, she was in the race for that district, the House district there. She filed an election complaint there regarding the votes. You have dealt with that there as well whenever you were running. Talk to us about that. What do you see happening there? Just give us your opinion.
Yeah, I showed up down there and understand I'm a former election commissioner. I've written a lot of laws, written the photo ID bill. I've actually went and got fraud out. It's one thing to yell and say it happens. It's one thing to go do the work and actually expose it and actually stop it. And so, that is something that's a very special baby to me. And so when that process is corrupted or not done right, and understand in every election, there's mistakes, screw ups and bad judgment, things can be done, but that's not what is going on in Crawford County. And I go back to 2012 when Bill Coleman, the now election commissioner, I was running against him. Bruce Coleman was on the election commission, his brother. They wake up the next day and find 3 ballot boxes that had not been counted. They went to Bruce Coleman, then goes and counts votes and ballots without even telling me or anybody else. I mean, you had the involvement of Red Hatcher in it. There was just so many things that were wrong in it and actually illegal that it's naturally trust process. Fast forward to 2016, Derek Goodwin runs against Bruce Coleman.
Yeah.
Things happen again. No, I'm sorry. You just can't do that. Go back to 18 and the delays and what was going on in that election down there. And as I've always said, and people have to understand that, and I've even told Democrats this, elections can be easily frauded and hard to catch. That's just the truth of it. So I don't know. Some of these Democrats, I'd never have strayed off that message, even though some of them don't like to hear that. But yet I want to say this, and 16 happened, 18 happens, and then now you have this. I will say I have been trying to review this a little bit. I do not think this is a Chad Purrier angle, because one of the consistent things in what I talked about in 12, 16, 18, and now is, and he lost for county clerk in the runoff, was Tim Walker was the election coordinator with the Colemans throughout all this process when all this stuff's happening. Whenever Bill Coleman sit there and said he had to be called out to say, hey, I've got the ballots at home. He knew the ballots were at home. Right there, number one is he should be out, period. Him and his nephew or whatever family connections to that. The Colemans do not need to have anything to do with their past history of doing things that they do. They do not have it. There's no way to trust the process with the history of the Colemans. And I'll go back to 12, whenever Bruce Coleman should have recused himself, didn't, and he's down there counting ballots without anybody around. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, if they were Democrats, we'd be down there wanting their head. And all of a sudden, where is the Republicans at? But I'll just tell you right now, there is nothing to be trusted that comes out of Coleman's. But I will say, I do not think it's a Chad Purrier angle to this. I mean, I do not see, even though they gave him some money and there looks like that is low-hanging fruit to look at. After I looked at it and got through it, but there are a lot of questions. When I was questioning Bill Coleman down there, you know, to act nonchalantly like you just, oh, I just took him home. Don't worry about it. Right there is a red flag. And let me give you an example to counter that. We had a situation where you have designated bearers going to absentee ballots, and I was a designated bearer one time, and the clerk had told me the dates, and it was before the date was allowed for designated bearers. So once the mistake was caught, which happens, we notified the clerk and notified the election commissioners. Everything was above board. We went through the process. There was a way to challenge the ballots with provisional ballots through that process, whatever it is. That is the way you handle that. You don't get home and have ballots home and all of a sudden have to be called out publicly in a meeting. That is so outside the boundaries of anything that anybody should do. And I don't care if you're Republican, you know, rich, powerful, whatever you think you are. You know what? The law and expectations of being fair should be the standard.
Yeah, well, we will be watching that for sure. Again, the court date is the 15th. One other thing that I want to ask you about that is in the news currently right now is the issue of per diem down at the Arkansas legislature right now, and the ethics commission holding private executive session. Talk to us about that. What is your perspective on what's happening?
Yeah, the ethics commission, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not really, you know, whatever they're doing. I think that could be a tool to be used to go after certain people or not and whatever. But I think that the whole, as I've said, the whole per diem system that is set up down there is, I mean, I'll just be blunt, is stupid for number one in a lot of ways, and exploited so much and so easily. And you know what? It was time to call it out a long time ago. I saw so much exploitation and misuse and abuse of the per diem system down there, and it is got to be changed. So you can have whatever situations happening I really don't know about, but I can tell you the per diem system and how that's going is, I mean, I'm just being blue collar blunt. It's just stupid, exploited, abused, manipulated by people down there wanting to personally profit themselves. And you know, the system, it's not the actors, but it's the system.
All right. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on Conduit. We appreciate the fact that you don't mince your words at all. Looking forward to November for you in that Senate race, District 28.
Yeah, and I want to do a quick promotional Bass Reeves. So I have the painting back. They're having a reenactment. He was a deputy U.S. Marshal, legendary in Judge Isaac Parker's court. They're having some events down there, rededication of his statue, and he's an amazing man. And every Arkansan should read about his story and know his story. It's just really amazing. It's Bass Reeves. And so anyway, but I just want to, you know, say that, you know, I'm going to keep going. I have not changed my message no matter what the other side says. And it was just a big victory against the big corporate controlling special interest and them dumping all the money in. You know, like you said, they kept saying we said lies. What did we say? We did not say anything that we couldn't factually back up. You know, you just have the system down there that has to be cleaned up so that we have a fair process and a fair debate and fair decisions for the people first. I mean, the Bruce Hawkinses, the Michael Lamoureux, the Red Hatchers, those people have got to be out of politics because they have corrupted and manipulated the system for their own benefit and profit.
All right. Thank you so much, Bryan. Look forward to having you back on Conduit again.
All right. Thank you.